You're sitting there right now, plugged into the grid, phone at 80%, fridge humming like a lullaby, and you think the world owes you another sunrise. Then the lights blink once, twice, and everything goes black. Not for an hour, not for a night, but for good. No power, no pumps, no deliveries, just silence and sirens in the distance that slowly stop. 3 days in, the tap runs dry, the stores are stripped, and the nice people in your neighborhood start looking at each other like walking cans of food. Your phone is a dead brick, and the last thing you doom-scrolled was a meme about the end of the world, LOL. Now it's not funny anymore. Here's the part nobody wants to picture. Your kid's thirsty, your partner panicking, your parents terrified and fragile, and you realizing in real time that you did not have a plan. That's the exact moment where 99% of people break because they thought, I'll figure it out when it happens. You don't figure out civilization collapse with vibes. If you're still watching, you're already different from the herd. The herd thinks another delivery truck is always coming, that the tap will always burp back to life, that someone with a badge will fix it all. You know better, or at least you're starting to suspect. So here's my promise. In the next few minutes, I'm going to hand you the blueprint for a 15-item reserve that does 2 jobs at once, keeps your loved ones alive when everything breaks, and gives you the tools to start rebuilding something sane out of the rubble. This isn't a cute bug-out bag. It's the nucleus of a new life support system. Everything I'm about to lay out comes straight from the Fallout Squirrel playbook. Forget Hollywood. There's no convoy of armored trucks coming to scoop you up and drop you into a pristine bunker with a gym and a chef. Real collapse is ugly, slow, boring, then suddenly lethal. The people who survive aren't the ones with the coolest fantasy gear. They're the ones who quietly built boring, redundant systems that actually work. By the way, if you'd rather not be part of the statistic of good people who died because they trusted the system, hit subscribe and stay here with the 1% who prepare instead of pray for normal to come back. Here's how this game actually works. In a long emergency, everything collapses in layers. First comfort goes, then convenience, then safety, then law, then compassion. Your 15-item reserve has to reverse that. It buys you water, calories, warmth, medicine, power, information, and eventually trade and community. Miss one layer, and the whole thing cracks under pressure. This is not a 1,000,000-item prepper horde. I'm talking 15 core pillars, each one deliberately chosen because it multiplies everything else. 15 things that fit in a single room or garage, but give you the backbone to keep people breathing now and rebuild later. Think of it as your personal starter kit for Civilization 2.0. Let's start with the one that decides whether you live 3 hours or 3 weeks: water. Item 1 is a serious gravity-fed multi-stage water filtration system. Not a cute camping straw, not tablets, a system. Ceramic or hollow fiber primary stage, carbon block for taste and chemicals, and pre-filters you can clean instead of throw away. That system is your new municipal water department. Here's the scenario. Municipal pumps die, pressure drops, and everything out of that tap turns into air and hope. You find barrels, rain, ponds, even nasty brown puddles if you have to. With a real filter, you can turn absolutely not into good enough to drink and keep going. For a family of 4, that system will touch tens of thousands of liters over its life if you protect it. And here's the rebuild angle. Clean water isn't just about drinking. You're going to use it for basic sanitation, medical care, maybe small-scale agriculture. Every community that makes it will organize around whoever can make dirty water safe at scale. You become the person with the tap that still works on day 200. That's leverage, and that's how you trade for security, skills, and labor without firing a shot. Item 2 is the boring twin that your ego will try to skip. Actual stored water. I'm talking at least 200 gallons in food-grade containers, plus a plan to refill them. That's not as sexy as a rifle photo on social media, but it's the difference between we can think clearly and everyone is dizzy and making bad decisions. 1 gallon per person per day is bare minimum. More is better. Those barrels buy you time. Time to figure out where the nearest viable water sources are. Time to build rain catchment instead of drinking from a ditch. Time to keep kids washed, gear rinsed, and infections out of the picture. When everyone else is standing in line for a water truck that never shows, you're just quietly rotating barrels. In rebuild mode, stored water plus filtration lets you bootstrap a small clinic, a micro farm, or a shared kitchen when your neighbors are ready to stop looting and start cooperating. The person who can say, bring your bucket, leave with clean water, becomes part of the new leadership whether they wanted it or not. Might as well be you. Now, let's talk about the thing everyone thinks they've got covered because they have a pantry: calories. Item 3 is your calorie core: bulk staple foods that store for years and actually keep humans alive. Think rice, beans, wheat berries, oats, lentils, plus salt and sugar, all in sealed containers with oxygen absorbers. 1 pound of dry grain is roughly 1/500 calories. Do the math for a year for your household and add 25%. This isn't about eating like royalty. It's about having predictable, boring fuel for brains and bodies. When the chaos outside is unpredictable, the food inside needs to be the opposite. You don't want to be inventing dinners out of random cans while stress cooking. You want a repeatable rotation: soak, boil, eat, live. Boring is beautiful. Long term, that calorie core turns into seed grain, animal feed, and the base for trade. You can mill wheat into flour for bread, trade sacks of rice for labor, use beans to fix nitrogen in soil. Remember, we're not just surviving in a bunker forever. We're laying track for a new local economy where food is currency again. Item 4 is the protein and fat reserve, because if you try to live on plain carbs alone, your body and brain will revolt. Think dry beans, lentils, canned meats, canned fish, nut butters, shelf-stable oils, and powdered eggs or dairy if you can swing it. Fats are dense calories, and your hormonal system screams for them under stress. Most pantries are carbohydrate museums with a token jar of peanut butter. Don't be that guy. Here's where this gets tactical. Fats and proteins are hard to find and preserve post-collapse. Hunting gets stripped fast, fishing spots get crowded, livestock gets eaten early. If you've got a quiet, hidden reserve of fats and protein, you can keep your family strong enough to work, think, and defend while others fade. Energy isn't abstract. It's literally in the oil and beans you stacked. On the rebuild side, animal protein production will be slow to restart. Your stored reserve bridges that gap. It lets you put energy into building chicken coops, rabbit hutches, fish ponds, and gardens instead of spending every waking hour chasing calories. You're buying future time with present shelves. Item 5 ties all that together: a real cooking and heat system that doesn't depend on the grid. I'm talking a rocket stove, a high-efficiency wood stove, or a safe indoor-rated propane setup with proper ventilation and detectors, plus enough fuel to make that food and boil that water for months. Fire is civilization in miniature. Without controlled heat, half of what you stored is useless. Most people underestimate fuel like crazy. They buy a little camp stove and a couple of canisters and think they're good. No. You need redundancy: wood, propane, maybe alcohol or charcoal, plus the tools to process scrap wood safely. In winter climates, heat is not negotiable. It's the timer ticking over your family's head. In rebuild mode, that stove becomes the village kitchen. People will bring their ingredients, their last cans, their random grains, and you'll provide the fire and the safe setup. A shared hot meal is how you turn scared strangers into allies. It's also how you start building structure. You help chop wood, you eat. You help wash pots, you eat. Systems grow around heat sources. Item 6 is your medical and sanitation block. Not a cute first aid kit in a red pouch, but a tote or shelf dedicated to trauma supplies, chronic meds, over-the-counter drugs, bandages, disinfectants, gloves, masks, soap, toothbrushes, feminine hygiene, diapers if needed, and a serious stash of bleach or calcium hypochlorite. In collapse, the smallest cut can kill you through infection. Picture this. The hospital is either overwhelmed, looted, or locked. Ambulances don't come. You are the first and maybe only responder. Someone in your house gets a bad cut, a burn, or a broken bone. With the right gear and knowledge, you can stabilize, clean, immobilize, and monitor. Without it, you watch something survivable turn into a funeral. That's the difference a $300 bin of medical seriousness makes. Sanitation is the quiet killer. When toilets back up and trash piles up, disease blooms. Your medical block needs to include trash bags, bucket toilet setup, lime or absorbent material, hand sanitizer, and a ruthless discipline about what goes where. Keeping your area clean is like having an invisible force field against the plagues that will rip through unprepared neighborhoods. Item 7 is power, your personal microgrid. At minimum, a solar generator with lithium battery, a couple of rigid or folding panels, and the cables to tie it all together. Better is a system large enough to run lights, charge tools, radios, maybe even a small freezer if you're ambitious. Any electricity when the world is dark is essentially magic. Use it carefully. Here's the trick. You're not trying to recreate your old life. You don't need to run an air conditioner and a gaming PC. You need light for safety and sanity, charged comms, maybe a fan in hot climates, and power for a few key tools. Design your power block around that. Every watt you produce is a tactical asset. Don't waste it on nostalgia. For rebuilding, your microgrid is the seed of a new infrastructure. You can run a ham radio station connecting pockets of survivors, power a small workshop, refrigerate vaccines or critical meds if you're linked to a medic. People will walk miles for a phone charge, a cold vial, or a lit workspace. Power. Influence. Use it wisely, or someone else will use force to take it. Item 8 is the hand tools and repair core. I don't care how many gadgets you own. If you can't turn a wrench or swing a hammer, you're a liability. You want a compact but serious kit. Hammers, saws, hand drills, screwdrivers, wrenches, pliers, files, axes, shovels, pry bar, fasteners, tapes, glues. Nothing with a lithium battery is guaranteed, but a steel tool and a strong arm will still work in 50 years. Let me paint you a picture. The roof leaks, the door won't close, the pipe bursts, the fence falls. In normal times, you call a contractor. In collapse, you are the contractor. With the right tools and some practice, you can patch, reinforce, improvise. Without them, every minor failure escalates until your shelter becomes unlivable. The world falls apart faster than you can duct tape it back together. In rebuild mode, tools are the backbone of your contribution to a new community. Everyone has needs. Not everyone has the hardware or the know-how. Being the person who can fix a door, build a table, or reinforce a wall is job security in a world without HR departments. Trade repairs for food, protection, intelligence. That's a better deal than trading your safety for someone else's promise. Item 9 is your water infrastructure upgrade kit. Filters and barrels got you started, but this block turns your home into a mini water plant. We're talking guttering hardware, downspouts, first flush diverters, hose, fittings, spigots, maybe a small pump and some PEX and clamps. You want to be able to catch, store, move, and distribute water like a tiny city. While everyone else is staring at empty faucets, you're looking at the sky and seeing free supply. Rain catchment off a modest roof can yield thousands of gallons a year depending on your climate. With a little plastic, some angles, and gravity, you stop being a water beggar and start being a water manager. It's not glamorous, but it's the kind of quiet competence that keeps families alive. In the long game, water infrastructure is how communities form. A cluster of houses all feeding into a shared storage tank, gravity-fed to a central point, treated through that filter we talked about earlier. That's the skeleton of a new town. You can be the weirdo who once knew how gutters worked, or you can be the reason people call your block the place with water. Item 10 is your seed and soil fertility block. The future on a shelf. Heirloom seeds for staple crops and fast growers, plus basic soil amendments. Compost starter, some fertilizer, maybe biochar or lime depending on your land. The key is not just seeds, but the knowledge and tools to keep soil alive. Dirt is not equal to soil. Soil is a living system you feed and manage. Picture next spring in a broken world. Stores still empty, supply chains ghosted. You walk outside to turned beds, containers, or improvised vertical planters, and you have actual seeds that sprout instead of random kernels from animal feed. You know what goes where, when, and how much water it needs because you practiced before the collapse. That's not gardening as a hobby, that's agriculture as survival. For rebuilding, this is obvious. Food production is the beating heart of any new civilization. If you can grow surplus, you can feed others. If you can teach others, you become a node of resilience. Seed saving, composting, crop rotation. Those dusty skills your grandparents had might end up being more valuable than half the degrees on the wall. Start now so your post-collapse learning curve doesn't kill you. Item 11 is the communication and signal package. The moment the internet dies and cell towers go quiet, we revert to 1800s information speed unless you've prepared. You want at least a couple of battery or crank radios for receiving, a handheld ham or GMRS radio for local comms, spare batteries, antenna upgrades, and a Faraday container to protect critical electronics from EMP scenarios. Information is oxygen. Here's the play. While your neighbors are guessing and chasing rumors, you're quietly scanning bands, listening to emergency traffic, distant repeaters, maybe other survivors coordinating. Knowing what's happening 50 or 500 miles away changes your decisions today. Do you stay? Do you move? What direction is safer? What's burning? What's sick? The person with real intel doesn't panic. They plan. When it's time to rebuild, comms are how you link little pockets of order into something bigger. Radio nets for trade, security alerts, medical requests, it all travels through the air you're already listening to. You might end up as the unofficial dispatcher, the news station, or the one who organizes watch rotations across a few blocks. That's how civilization grows, one message at a time. Item 12 is the shelter hardening and weatherization kit. You think your modern house is tough until you live in it without power for a winter or a summer. This block is plastic sheeting, insulation, weather stripping, plywood, screws, brackets, security film for windows, heavy curtains, and basic door reinforcement hardware. Your goal is to turn a flimsy box into a defensible, thermally efficient shell. Imagine day 10 of a cold snap with no heat and broken windows down the street from looters. You don't have time or resources to rebuild a fortress, but you can shrink your living space, seal drafts, add layers, and reinforce obvious entries. Even modest improvements in insulation and security buy you comfort, stealth, and reaction time. You become a harder, less obvious target. In the rebuilding phase, that same kit is what you'll use to patch neighbors' places, secure community spaces, and create warm rooms for elders, kids, and the sick. Comfort isn't just nice to have. It keeps people from making desperate, stupid decisions. A little warmth and a solid door can prevent a lot of violence. Item 13 is mobility and load-bearing. No, not a fleet of trucks. You probably won't have fuel. I'm talking human-scale transport. Sturdy carts, wheelbarrows, backpacks, duffel bags, 5-gallon buckets, maybe a good bicycle with racks and spare tubes. The world gets big again when gasoline disappears. Being able to move 200 pounds of supplies a mile without dying is a massive advantage. While others burn their last fuel on panicked trips and then get stranded, you're methodically shuttling water from the stream, firewood from the lot, salvage from the abandoned store. Every trip is efficient because you can carry more than your arms can hold. You want wheels, straps, and containers, not hope and pockets. In rebuild mode, this is how micro-supply chains form. People with carts and bikes become the lifeblood between gardens, water points, workshops, and shelters. You can establish regular routes, trade runs, and delivery patterns long before anyone says the word logistics. Civilization is just organized movement of stuff. You'll be ahead of the curve. Item 14 is the knowledge archive. All the gear in the world is useless if you're guessing how to use it. You want printed manuals, reference books on first aid, gardening, small engine repair, carpentry, water systems, radio operation, herbal basics, maybe simple textbooks for kids. Add a USB or drive with a giant offline library if you've got the power to read it, but assume paper is your primary. Paper doesn't crash. Here's what they don't tell you. In a long collapse, your memory and YouTube-minted skills will evaporate under stress. You'll forget critical steps, dosages, wiring diagrams. Having physical references you can flip open when your brain is fried is priceless. It turns panic into procedure. Turn to page 37 beats, I think I saw a video once. For rebuilding, the knowledge archive is literally your school system and your university. Kids will need to learn to read, count, understand the world. Adults will need to reskill hard, fast. The community with a library, even a janky, crooked one in a basement, has a future. The communities that burn books for warmth are living on borrowed time. Item 15 is the trade and morale reserve, and this one separates the amateurs from the people who've actually thought past week 1. You need small, high-value, non-perishable items that store compactly and will still matter later. Extra hygiene supplies, lighters, matches, batteries, candles, sewing kits, coffee, tea, spices, simple tools, notebooks, pens, maybe some comfort snacks you rotate, plus a few things purely for morale, cards, games, musical instruments. While everyone else is breaking into stores for flat-screen TVs and junk electronics, you're sitting on the real gold, the stuff that makes life slightly better in a hard world. The ability to offer someone a bar of soap, a hot cup of coffee, or a fresh pair of socks in trade is power. It builds alliances and obligations without ever pointing a weapon. Morale is not optional. People who lose the will to live stop taking precautions, stop working, stop caring. Your morale stash lets you inject small hits of normalcy into an abnormal world. A game night, a warm drink, a birthday candle. Communities don't hold together on calories alone. They need culture, even if that's just bad jokes by lantern light. So that's your 15-item reserve: water treatment, stored water, calorie core, protein and fat, cooking and heat, medical and sanitation, power, tools, water infrastructure, seeds and soil, comms, shelter hardening, mobility, knowledge, and trade and morale. 15 pillars that let you say, we're not just hiding, we're building. The question isn't whether this is overkill. The question is whether you're okay betting your family's lives that nothing bad will ever happen. Here's your choice right now. You can click away, tell yourself you'll get around to it, and go back to scrolling memes, or you can pick one of these 15 and start building it this week. Not someday. This week. One tote, one shelf, one category at a time. Start by mapping where this reserve lives. Walk your home or garage and designate the space. Clear the junk, measure the shelves, sketch a rough layout, water on one wall, food on another, tools and medical where you can reach them fast. If you don't make a physical home for this system, it will stay a fantasy in your head. Fantasy doesn't keep anyone warm. Then attack it like a mission. Week 1, lock in water. Buy containers, start filling, order a real filter. Week 2, hammer the calorie core. Week 3, grab medical and sanitation. You don't need to do it all at once. You just need to be moving faster than the collapse curve. Every bin you fill is one less thing your future self has to improvise while scared. Most people won't do this. 99% will watch, nod, feel a little anxious, and then go right back to trusting the system that already told them, in 1,000 subtle ways, that they are disposable. You don't have to be angry about that, but you do have to decide if you're going to be in that majority or in the tiny sliver who quietly rewrites the odds. If you're still here, you're probably part of the 1% who think differently. Subscribe if you're part of the 0.1% who will turn thinking into action. Here's your immediate homework. Open a new tab, price out a real gravity water filter, 2 55-gallon barrels, and a starter stash of bulk staples. Then grab a notebook and list which of the 15 items you already have partially covered and which are a 0. No judgment, just reality. Once it's on paper, you've turned fear into a checklist. After that, walk your neighborhood with new eyes. Where could you collect water? Who has skills you don't? A nurse, a mechanic, a gardener? Where are the choke points and blind spots? Rebuilding the world isn't a solo movie. It's a team sport. Your 15-item reserve is your ticket to being a valuable teammate instead of a burden. You can ignore this, trust the grid, and hope the people in charge are smarter and kinder than history suggests. Or you can start stacking quiet, boring power in a corner of your life until one day you look around and realize you're not scared anymore. You're ready. The collapse clock is ticking whether you believe in it or not. Your move. Class dismissed.